You called your own mother a burden. In front of the entire church? That's what my son said before locking me in a nursing home I didn't belong in. But what they didn't know? I wasn't sick. I had just baked pies, balanced my checkbook, and planted tulips that same week. They didn't want to take care of me. They wanted control over my money. My name is Ellie. I spent 2 weeks in that place, but I fought my way out, with nothing but a journal, a house key, and the help of one loyal friend. Watch until the end, and I'll show you how I sold the house out from under my son, exposed his forged documents, and used every penny to create something powerful, something that protects women like you. He said I had dementia. I proved in court that I didn't. Now, I live next door to him, planting roses with my grandson, right where he has to see me thrive. If you think this couldn't happen to you, think again. So many women have already lived this story. Don't wait until it's too late. Before I take you into the heart of this story, tell me a little about you. Who do you love more, your mom or your dad? Leave a 1 if it's your mom, a 2 if it's your dad, or a 3 if you love them both equally. I read every comment, and maybe your answer will echo through the next part of this journey. Let's begin together. My son called me a burden at the church potluck. His words cut deeper than I ever imagined. I stood in my backyard, the June sun dipping low over Maplewood, Ohio, string lights twinkling above the picnic tables. The air carried the sweet scent of my homemade apple pie, mingling with the hum of cicadas. June 15, 2024, felt like any other summer potluck, with neighbors chatting and kids chasing fireflies. I smoothed my apron, hands trembling from a long day of baking. My heart, though, trembled for reasons I couldn't yet name. I sliced pie, the knife scraping the tin, and passed a plate to Mrs. Delaney, who smiled her gossipy smile. "Ellie, you outdo yourself every year," she cooed. I nodded, my eyes flicking to my family at the main table. Nate, my son, leaned back, his jaw tight, like he was chewing on something sour. At 40, he carried the weight of his failed real estate deals, lines creasing his face. Rachel, my daughter, 35 and guarded, stirred her lemonade, avoiding my gaze. Henry, my husband of 40 years, scrolled his phone, his mechanic's hands smudged with grease, oblivious to the chatter. Caleb, my 14-year-old grandson, Rachel's boy, caught my eye and grinned, his love for my gardening stories a quiet anchor. "Mom, you're moving like molasses," Nate muttered, rolling his eyes. His voice, sharp with that generational edge, stung. I forced a chuckle, brushing it off. "Takes time to make it perfect, Nate." Rachel kept stirring, her silence heavy. I'd missed her college graduation years ago, working double shifts to pay Nate's tuition. She hadn't forgiven me, not really. I swallowed, my throat tight, and kept serving. The clinking plates faded as we sat for grilled chicken, the table groaning with potluck dishes. Laughter rippled, but tension coiled around us. Nate stabbed his fork into his plate, his irritation palpable. "Mom, you forgot the napkins again," he snapped. I started to rise, but Caleb jumped up. "I got it, Grandma." His small gesture warmed me, his loyalty a flicker of hope. Mrs. Delaney leaned toward her neighbor, whispering, her eyes darting to Nate. "Imagine sitting beside your own son, surrounded by neighbors, and hearing him call you a burden like you're some broken thing to hide. Think you know what happens next? You don't. If you're still here with me, drop a 5 in the comments, because what's coming will sting deeper than you expect." Then it came, sudden as a summer storm. "You're a burden, Mom," Nate said, his voice loud, cutting through the chatter. "You don't get how the world works now. We can't keep fixing your mistakes." The words landed like a slap. Mrs. Delaney gasped, her fork clattering. Neighbors turned, their murmurs buzzing like the cicadas. Rachel froze, her spoon mid-stir. Henry glanced up, frowning, but said nothing. Caleb's hand found mine under the table, squeezing, his whisper fierce. "You're not Grandma." My chest ached, but I forced a smile, my lips trembling. "Just eat, Nate," I said softly, my voice a shield. The potluck blurred on, laughter resuming, but I felt carved out, hollow. Nate's stress, his defaulted loans, didn't excuse this. I'd sold my art supplies, my dreams, to fund his college, his ventures. Rachel's silence cut too, her old wound festering. Henry's indifference, buried in his shop's finances, left me alone. Only Caleb's grip kept me grounded. Later, the backyard emptied, string lights swaying in the breeze. I stood in my kitchen, scrubbing dishes, the sink's drip echoing. Clink, drip, clink. My hands shook, soap suds sliding down my wrists. I saw the faded wedding photo on the mantel, Henry and me smiling, young and hopeful. I'd given up painting for his mechanic shop, for our kids. Had it meant nothing? I gave everything, I whispered, my voice cracking. Was I ever their mother, or just their stepping stone? My hurt hardened, a spark of defiance flickering. I wouldn't let Nate's words define me. Drying my hands, I noticed Nate's phone on the counter, left behind in his rush to leave. A notification flashed, Mom's finances. My heart skipped. Why was he emailing about my money? I hesitated, fingers hovering, but didn't touch it. The screen dimmed, the words lingering like a warning. I turned off the kitchen light, the house quiet now, save for the cicadas outside. As I headed to bed, I overheard Nate's voice in the driveway, low and urgent, talking to Rachel. "We need to handle Mom's savings soon," he said. My breath caught. What were they planning? I leaned against the wall, my resolve stirring, ready to find out. They promised a family lunch. They locked me in a nursing home instead. I sat on my porch, the Maplewood morning warm, my coffee mug steaming. Nate's words from last night's potluck, "You're a burden, Mom," still burned. I clutched my purse, the house key inside heavy, a reminder of the home I'd built. It was all I had left after pouring my life into my children. I didn't know I'd need that key to fight for it. Nate's SUV pulled up, tires crunching gravel, Garth Brooks twanging through open windows. He stepped out, his smile tight, lines creasing his 40-year-old face. "Ready for lunch, Mom," he called, too cheerful. Rachel, my daughter, slid out, her eyes darting away, her 35 years carrying old wounds. I stood, smoothing my skirt, trusting them despite the ache in my chest. "Sounds nice," I said, my voice soft. My key jangled in my purse, a quiet comfort. Nate gripped my arm, his fingers tight, pushing me into the SUV's back seat. "Lunch will cheer you up," he said, his tone clipped. Pain shot through my elbow, but I bit my lip, confused. Rachel nodded silently, her hands twisting in her lap. The radio blared, drowning my thoughts. I glanced at Nate's neck, tense, and Rachel's fidgeting fingers. Something felt wrong, but I clung to hope. They were my kids. They wouldn't hurt me. The SUV hummed through Maplewood streets, past cul-de-sacs and picket fences. I expected the diner, its neon sign and greasy fries. Instead, Nate turned into a lot, a low building looming. Beige walls, plastic flowers in pots. A sign read, "Maplewood Care Facility." My stomach dropped. The radio faded, replaced by a bleach scent wafting through the open window. "Where are we?" I asked, my voice shaking. Nate parked, his jaw set. "It's for your own good, Mom," he said, not looking at me. Rachel murmured, "It's best, Mom." Her voice barely audible. My heart pounded. Nate opened my door, pulling me out, his grip bruising. I stumbled, clutching my purse. A nurse, her badge reading Karen, approached, her smile kind but practiced. Nate handed her a folded paper, his fingers steady. "She's got dementia," he said, loud enough for passers-by to hear. "Needs long-term care." Rachel nodded, her eyes on the ground. My knees buckled. Dementia? Me? Nurse Karen led me inside, the door creaking shut. The bleach smell stung my nose, the hallway dim, walls bare, except for faded prints. My mind raced. I'd balanced my checkbook last week, planted tulips, baked pies. I wasn't sick. I glanced back, but Nate and Rachel were gone, the SUV's engine fading. Karen's hand was gentle on my arm, her eyes soft. "We'll get you settled, Mrs. Thompson," she said. I followed, numb, my key digging into my palm through the purse. She showed me to a small room, a single bed, a dresser, no photos. A form lay on the nightstand, Nate's signature scrawled at the bottom, long-term placement. My breath caught, a gasp escaping. I raised them for this, I whispered, sinking onto the bed. My fingers tightened on my purse, the key a lifeline. How do you love children who cage you? Anger flickered, hot and sharp beneath my hurt. I wasn't done yet. I scanned the room, my eyes landing on a locked drawer in the dresser, my initials, E.T., scratched faintly in the wood. My heart skipped. Had someone hidden something? I tugged the handle, but it didn't budge. Karen returned, her shoes squeaking. Need anything? She asked, her voice warm. I shook my head, hiding my trembling hands. She lingered, her phone buzzing. I glimpsed a text. Check on Mrs. Thompson. The number was unknown. My pulse raced. Who was watching me? I sat alone, the fluorescent light buzzing, my hurt deepening into betrayal. Nate's forged letter, Rachel's nod, Henry's absence. They'd all turned away. But that key, that drawer, that text, they were clues. I wasn't a burden. I was a mother, and I'd find a way out. Nate said I never sacrificed for him. I'd prove him wrong, no matter the cost. The nursing home hallway stretched before me, dim under flickering fluorescent lights. Maplewood's farmer's market chattered outside, the faint scent of fresh peaches drifting through a cracked window. My shoes squeaked on the linoleum, each step heavy with betrayal. Nate's forged letter from yesterday, claiming I had dementia, burned in my mind. I saw myself years ago teaching him to plant seeds in our garden, his small hands patting soil. That boy was gone, replaced by a man who locked me away. But I wasn't done growing. I found Administrator Patel at the reception desk, his pen scratching paperwork. Mr. Patel, I said, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. I need to leave. There's been a mistake. He looked up, his face tight, and pushed Nate's letter toward me. Your son knows best, Mrs. Thompson, he said. Dementia's serious. You're not safe alone. My jaw clenched. I'd balanced my checkbook last week, planted tulips, baked pies. I'm not broken, I snapped, my hands trembling. I saw Nate's face in my mind, his college graduation, paid for by my double shifts, my sold art supplies. Patel's eyes softened, but he shook his head. Protocol, Mrs. Thompson. The hallway's hum faded as I stepped into the courtyard, a breeze carrying market chatter. I leaned against a bench, the wood rough under my fingers. A visitor nearby, phone pressed to her ear, laughed loudly. Then I heard it. Nate's voice, tinny through the speaker. Mom never sacrificed much, he told someone, probably a neighbor. She's just a burden now. My breath caught, a knife twisting in my chest. Farmer's market gossip would carry his lie by noon, my years of scraping by for him erased. My fingers curled, nails biting my palms. How dare he? I stumbled back inside, my face hot. A nurse, Karen, her badge glinting, passed me. Her eyes lingered, kind but cautious. You okay? She asked. I nodded, too angry to speak. In my room, the fluorescent buzz grated. I pulled out my journal, its pages already filled with account numbers from last night. I needed Lydia, my friend, my lawyer. Her own daughter had cut her off years ago, and she'd understand this pain. I grabbed the common room phone, my hands shaking, and dialed. Lydia, I said when she answered, her voice warm like summer. I'm here, Ellie. We'll fight this, she said, her tone fierce. I gripped my journal, whispering, I'll show him. Can a mother's love survive a son's lies? My anger surged, a seed of defiance sprouting. As I hung up, I overheard another visitor in the hall, her voice low. Nate was at the bank again, moving fast, she said. My heart skipped. Was he tampering with my savings? The thought fueled my resolve, my pen scratching harder in my journal. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry, ready to dig up his lies. Karen appeared at my door, her shoes soft on the linoleum. "Mrs. Thompson," she whispered, slipping me a folded note. "Lydia called. She's coming tomorrow." I unfolded it, my fingers trembling, the paper crinkling. Tomorrow. What would Lydia uncover? I sat on my bed, journal open, the farmer's market chatter fading outside. Nate thought he could erase me. He'd learn I was still growing, stronger than ever. Lydia's call lit a fire in me. Nate's lies wouldn't hold much longer. I sat in the nursing home's common room, the worn armchair creaking under me. Maplewood's coffee shop chatter drifted through an open window, the faint espresso scent mingling with the room's stale air. My journal, scribbled with account numbers from last night, lay open on my lap, its pages a battle plan. Nate's voice echoed in my head, denying my sacrifices, claiming I'd done nothing for him. My fingers tightened on the pen, anger simmering. I wasn't just fighting for my freedom, I was fighting for my truth. I glanced at the phone on the table, its cord tangled. Nurse Karen had slipped me a note yesterday saying Lydia would call. I reached for it, my hand steady despite the knot in my chest. The dial tone hummed, and I punched in Lydia's number. "Ellie," she answered, her voice warm but sharp like a summer storm. "I found an email. Nate's been at your bank." My breath caught, the coffee shop's clinking cups fading. "What did he do?" I asked, my voice low. Lydia, shaped by her own daughter's estrangement, didn't hesitate. He argued with the manager, said you're too old to manage your money. We'll nail him. Her words sparked fury, Nate's generational jab cutting deep. Too old. I'd funded his business, his dreams, with my own hands. I hung up, my pulse racing. Karen passed by, her shoes soft, her eyes kind but cautious. "You okay, Mrs. Thompson?" she asked, pausing. I nodded, clutching my journal, its pages a shield. "Just fighting," I said, my lips twitching. She smiled, a quiet ally, but protocol kept her tethered. I stood, the common room's hum fading, and headed to my room, the moonlight casting shadows through the small window. The bleach scent lingered, but my anger burned brighter. In my room, I sat on the bed, journal open, the moonlight glinting off the locked drawer with my initials. I scrawled notes, my pen scratching, recalling Rachel's college graduation I'd missed, working to save Nate's failing real estate venture. Rachel's silence, her belief in Nate's dementia, lies stung. Lydia had mentioned Rachel's doubt, a flicker of hope, but her absence now fueled my fire. I gripped the journal, my knuckles white, Nate's bank argument echoing. Too old, he'd said. My anger surged, a vow forming. "I'll bury his lies," I whispered, my voice fierce. Can a mother's hope outshine a son's greed? I tugged at the drawer, its lock stubborn, but something crinkled inside. I froze, my heart skipping. Karen must have slipped it there. I wedged my nail under the edge, prying until a folded paper fell out, an email printout showing an unauthorized bank access attempt tied to Nate's name. My breath hitched, the paper trembling in my hands. He wasn't just arguing, he was stealing. I tucked it into my journal, my resolve hardening, a symbolic shield against his betrayal. The fluorescent light buzzed, casting harsh shadows. I thought of Henry, working late at his shop, his indifference a quiet wound. Rachel, believing Nate's lies, felt far away, but Lydia, her own pain driving her, was coming tomorrow. My phone, borrowed from Karen, buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Lydia, "I'm bringing proof tomorrow." My pulse raced, the journal heavy in my lap. What evidence would she show? I closed my eyes, the coffee shop's clinks fading in my memory, my anger now a focused flame. Nate thought he could erase me. He'd learn I was still here fighting. Lydia showed me Nate's forged letter. My anger turned to power. The meeting room in Maplewood's nursing home was cramped, the air thick with the scent of stale popcorn from bingo night outside. Bingo calls echoed through the open door. B12, mixing with the chatter of residents. I sat at a wobbly table, my house key heavy in my pocket, a reminder of the home Nate stole. 2 weeks in this place and I wasn't broken. I was ready to fight. Lydia burst in, her lawyer's briefcase clicking open, her eyes glinting with fire. What if the person you trusted most left you behind, and you suddenly had the proof they never expected you to find? I still remember how my hands shook when I saw it. If you've ever uncovered a truth too heavy to hold, drop a 6 in the comments. The next part, it changed everything. Ellie, she said, sliding a paper across the table, here's Nate's forged letter. My fingers trembled, lifting the sheet. Nate's signature sprawled at the bottom, claiming my savings, labeling me demented. My jaw tightened, anger flaring. Dr. Ellis, the home's doctor, leaned in, his glasses slipping. "You're sharp, Mrs. Thompson," he said, his voice calm but firm. "No sign of dementia." I nodded, my heart pounding. The bingo chatter, G47, fading. Lydia grinned, her wit sharp. "We're going biblical, Ellie. Nate's done." Her own estrangement, a daughter who cut her off, fueled her fight. I clutched my key, its edges biting my palm. Nate thought I was useless. He'd see. The popcorn scent lingered as I walked to my room, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. My phone, borrowed from Nurse Karen, vibrated in my hand. Rachel's name flashed. My daughter, silent for weeks, complicit in Nate's lies. I answered, my voice tight. "Mom," she said, her voice breaking, "Nate lied about your dementia. He told me you're useless now. I believed him." Her words cut, but her tears softened the blow. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I want to help." I froze, my fingers clenching the key. Nate's cruel lie, useless now, stoked my fury, but Rachel's regret sparked hope. "We'll fix this," I said, my voice steady. Can a daughter's regret heal a mother's wounds? I wanted to believe it. In my room, the light's buzz grated. I sat at the dresser, the locked drawer with my initials now a symbol of Nate's secrets. Lydia joined me, her heels clicking. "We're filing to revoke his power of attorney," she said, spreading papers. "Sign here." My pen scratched, each stroke a reclaiming of control. Rachel's text pinged, a screenshot of Nate's email to a lawyer titled "Mom's Incapacity." My breath caught, the screen glowing with his betrayal. "I'm not useless," I whispered, signing the final form. "I'm unstoppable." My resolve hardened, the nursing home's walls no longer a cage. I was ready to leave, to face Nate. Lydia gathered her papers, her smile fierce. "We'll get you out tomorrow," she said. I nodded, my chest light for the first time in weeks. Rachel's call, her guilt over believing Nate, tied to her hurt when I missed her graduation for his loans, was a bridge back to me. Henry, still at his shop, working late, felt far away, his indifference a quiet ache. But Lydia and Rachel were here, their support a lifeline. I stood, pacing, my shoes soft on the linoleum. The bingo calls faded outside, the night quiet except for the light's hum. I glanced at the window, the parking lot shadowed. Then I saw it. Nate's SUV idling under a streetlight, its engine a low growl. My pulse raced, my key digging into my palm. Was he spying on me? I turned away, my resolve a burning flame. Nate's lies were crumbling, and I was rising. I sold my house from under Nate. He'd feel the real burden soon. The extended stay hotel in Maplewood hummed with the drone of the AC, its cool air a stark contrast to the fire in my chest. My house key, tucked in my pocket since that awful day Nate locked me away, pressed against my thigh. I remembered planting roses with Caleb years ago, his small hands digging beside mine, laughing as dirt smudged his cheeks. Those roots grounded me then, and I'd plant new ones now. Nate thought he could erase me, but I was rewriting the story. I sat on the hotel bed, papers spread before me, Lydia's briefcase open beside her. Her eyes sparkled, her lawyer's wit sharp as she slid the house sale contract my way. "Ellie, this is your move," she said, her voice low, gleeful. "Nate won't know what hit him." I traced the paper's edge, my fingers steady. Jade and Marcus Hill, a young couple with bright smiles, wanted my house, calling it full of soul. I saw its wraparound porch, the garden I'd tended for decades, all paid for with my art dreams, sold for Nate's college. I signed, the pen scratching, the AC's hum swallowing the sound. Lydia grinned. "Checkmate," she whispered. Her own estrangement, a daughter who'd cut her off, drove her to fight for me. I wasn't just selling a house, I was taking back my life. The hotel's sterile air faded as we drove to the real estate office, the scent of fresh ink greeting us. An American flag fluttered outside, kids on bikes ringing bells down Maplewood streets. Rachel and Caleb waited inside, their faces tense but warm. Caleb rushed to hug me, his 14-year-old frame lanky but strong. "Dad said you're holding us back, Grandma," he said, his voice cracking. "He said you're too old to live alone. I don't believe him." My heart twisted. Nate's generational jab, a fresh wound. Rachel stepped forward, her eyes wet. "I missed your strength, Mom," she said, her voice soft. "I was wrong to believe him." Her guilt, tied to that missed graduation when I worked for Nate's loans, hung between us. I hugged them both, my resolve ironclad. Nate's lies couldn't break this. In the office, we finalized the sale, the agent's pen clicking. I clutched my key, its weight a promise. What's a home worth when your son steals your heart? I wasn't holding anyone back. I was breaking free. Rachel handed me a folded note, her fingers trembling. "Found this in Nate's office?" she whispered. I opened it, my pulse quickening. Scribbled in Nate's hand, "Mom's savings. Transfer ASAP." My breath caught, the ink's sharpness a blade. He wasn't stopping. I tucked the note away, my anger simmering but focused. Lydia nodded, her eyes fierce. "He's done, Ellie," she said. The kids' bike bells faded outside, the office quiet but alive with my resolve. Back at the hotel, I sat on the bed, the AC humming softly. I spread out a newspaper, flipping through ads, my fingers pausing on one, a one-story house for sale right next to Nate's. My heart raced, a symbolic chance to face him every day. I circled it. The pen scratched loud in the quiet room. Henry, still at his shop, working late, felt like a ghost. His absence sharpened my focus on Rachel and Caleb, my new anchors. I wasn't just fighting Nate. I was building a future. I stood, pacing, the newspaper crinkling in my hand. Caleb's words, Rachel's note, Lydia's grin, they were my strength. Nate thought I was too old, a burden. I'd show him what a burden really felt like. I circled the ad again, my resolve afire. Would I buy that house to face him daily? The thought burned bright, my next move clear. Nate burned my wedding photo. I'd make him regret it. The late summer air in Nate's backyard, my old Maplewood home, carried the sizzle of barbecue, smoky tendrils curling under fairy lights. I stood by the picnic table, my heart pounding, clutching my journal from the hotel. Rachel had invited me, her voice soft, hopeful, promising a chance to talk. I wanted to believe her, but Nate's lies, his forged letter, lingered like the smoke. I saw my wedding photo in my mind, Henry and me smiling on the mantel, a symbol of the art career I gave up for them. Tonight I'd face Nate. Rachel greeted me, her eyes wet, her 35 years heavy with guilt. "Mom," she whispered, hugging me, "I missed your strength." Caleb, my grandson, hovered close, his 14-year-old face tight with worry. Neighbors milled, Mrs. Delaney's gossip already buzzing. Nate stood by the grill, his face lined, desperation in his eyes. His real estate debts had hollowed him, but I didn't expect what came next. He grabbed my wedding photo from a table, his fingers tight. "You're holding us back, Mom," he shouted, tossing it into the barbecue pit. Flames licked the frame, the glass cracking, my past curling to ash. Mrs. Delaney gasped, whispering to guests, her voice sharp. My chest burned, anger roaring. The crowd stilled, the sizzle of meat loud in the silence. I stumbled to the porch, the smoke stinging my eyes, Rachel and Caleb trailing me. The fairy lights dimmed, the air cooler now. Rachel gripped my hand, her voice shaking. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she said, her guilt tied to the graduation I'd missed for Nate's loans. Caleb pulled out his phone, his hands trembling. "Listen, Grandma," he said, playing a recording. Nate's voice, tinny, argued with a creditor. "Pay up or lose the house." My breath caught, a micro twist of his desperation. Henry, there for once, not at his shop, muttered, "I should have seen this." His regret, born of years ignoring my sacrifices, stirred. My anger peaked, but their support steadied me. Can a son erase a mother's love by burning her memories? We sat on the porch, the crackling fire fading behind us. I gripped my journal, its pages heavy with clues, Nate's bank visits, his forged letter. "He burned my past," I whispered, my voice fierce. "I'll build my future." My resolve hardened, a vow to strike back. Rachel nodded, her eyes fierce now too. Caleb leaned against me, his loyalty a balm. Henry's gaze lingered, his hands fidgeting, a sign he was waking up. Mrs. Delaney's whispers carried from the yard, Nate's shame spreading like wildfire. I stood, my journal a shield, the porch boards creaking under my feet. Rachel leaned close, her voice low. "Nate's hiding more at the bank," she whispered, her words sharp. My pulse raced. What was he concealing? The barbecue's smoke lingered, but my anger was a brighter flame. Nate thought he could erase me. I'd show him I was still here, growing stronger. Chapter 8, The Neighbor's Defiance. I moved next door to Nate. His shame became my daily view. The keys to my new one-story house jingled in my hand, the Maplewood air crisp with early autumn. Jazz music drifted from my radio, Ella Fitzgerald's voice weaving through the open windows. Leaves crunched under my boots as I stood in the front yard, the house's white picket fence, a fresh start. I remembered planting roses with Caleb years ago, his laughter bright as we patted soil. That memory rooted me now, promising a garden of defiance. Nate thought he'd buried me in that nursing home. I'd bloom where he had to see it. Inside, Lydia's briefcase snapped open, papers spilling onto the kitchen table. "Ellie, this is your checkmate," she said, her grin fierce, her lawyer's eyes glinting. I signed the final deed, the pen scratch loud against the jazz. My old house, sold to Jade and Marcus Hill, was gone, but this one, right next to Nate's, was mine. Caleb, my grandson, hauled a bag of rose bushes from the car, his 14-year-old shoulders strong. "Where do we plant these, Grandma?" he asked, his smile easing my heart. I pointed to the fence line, facing Nate's windows. "Right there," I said, my voice steady. Neighbors peeked from their lawns, intrigued, the block party's chatter humming nearby. Lydia, her own daughter's estrangement fueling her fire, clapped my shoulder. "He's done for," she whispered. My resolve surged, a quiet power. The jazz faded as we walked to the block party, strings of lights glowing down the street. Maplewood's cul-de-sac buzzed with laughter, kids chasing glow sticks, burgers sizzling. Rachel met us, her eyes bright with redemption. "You did it, Mom," she said, hugging me, her guilt over our past softening. Henry trailed her, his mechanic's hands clean for once, his face heavy with regret. "Looks nice, Ellie," he mumbled, his first real words in weeks. I nodded, my heart cautious but warming. Then Nate appeared, his face pale, his eyes darting to my new house. Panic twisted his features, his debts a noose tightening since I sold his inheritance. He stormed over, his boots stomping. "You're ruining us, Mom!" he shouted, pushing my arm hard, nearly knocking me back. "You don't get how the world works." His voice, raw with generational scorn, silenced the crowd. Rachel grabbed his sleeve, yelling, "Stop, Nate!" Henry stepped forward, his voice low. "Enough, Nate!" Mr. Ruiz, a neighbor, whispered to others, his eyes wide. My arm throbbed, but I stood tall, fury blazing. Is a mother's defiance heavier than a son's shame? The party's chatter resumed, but Nate's shove lingered like a bruise. We returned to my porch, the jazz radio soft now, leaves crunching underfoot. Rachel's hand trembled, holding mine. "I'm with you, Mom," she said, her loyalty a balm. Caleb sat close, his face tight, Nate's aggression wounding him. Henry lingered, his fingers fidgeting. "I've been blind," he said, his regret tied to my sacrificed art career. Lydia spread legal papers on the kitchen table, her voice sharp. "We're filing for a partition sale," she said. "Nate's out." Her justice drive, born of her own family's fractures, burned bright. Mr. Ruiz slipped me a note as he passed, his handwriting shaky. "Nate's been meeting a shady lawyer." My pulse quickened, a clue to his next move. Inside, the radio played on, Ella's voice soothing. I gripped my journal, its pages thick with Nate's lies, forged letters, bank visits, that note from Rachel about his savings grab. "He can push me," I whispered, "but I won't fall." My resolve peaked, ready to expose him fully. Caleb's hurt eyes, Rachel's fierce nod, Henry's quiet presence. They were my strength. I wasn't just next door. I was in Nate's face, his shame, my daily view. As we tidied the kitchen, Rachel paused, her hand in her purse. "Found this in Nate's car," she said, passing me a bank receipt, a large withdrawal circled in red. My heart raced, the paper crinkling. What was he planning now? I stood by the window, jazz fading, the block party's lights twinkling. Nate's house was dark, but I was ready for whatever came next. I showed Nate his forged letter. His lies collapsed under my gaze. The autumn evening settled over my new Maplewood porch, the air sharp with the scent of burning leaves. Block party music faded down the street, streetlights humming softly, casting shadows on my white picket fence. I rocked in my chair, the porch boards creaking, my journal open on my lap. I remembered teaching Nate honesty as a boy, his small hand clutching mine as we counted pennies for ice cream. That trust was gone, replaced by his forged letter, his theft of my life. Tonight, I'd end it. Nate appeared at the fence, his face gaunt, his 40 years heavy with debt and guilt. He climbed the steps, his boots scuffing, and dropped to his knees. "I'm sorry, Mom," he begged, his voice cracking. I was desperate. My fingers tightened on the journal, the forged letter tucked inside, its edges worn from my touch. I pulled it out, holding it up, my eyes steady. "You stole my life, Nate," I said, my voice low, cutting. His eyes widened, but defiance flared. "You're outdated, Mom," he sneered, standing, his voice loud enough for Mrs. Delaney, lingering nearby, to gasp. "We had to move on." His cruel dismissal, dripping with generational scorn, echoed across the quiet street. My heart pounded, but I stood, my resolve a steel blade. Mrs. Delaney's whispers started, her gossip spreading like wildfire. The porch creak faded as we moved inside, the kitchen warm with the glow of a single lamp. Lydia sat at the table, her briefcase open, papers crisp. "Ellie's will," she said, her voice fierce, "leaves everything to Caleb and the Thompson legacy grant." Rachel beside her nodded, her eyes shining. "I should have seen your strength sooner, Mom," she said, her voice thick, her reconciliation complete after years of distance over her missed graduation. Henry, his mechanic's hands clasped, added, "I was blind, Ellie." His regret, tied to my sacrificed art career, softened his gruff tone. Caleb, his 14-year-old face torn, clutched my hand, his loyalty unwavering despite Nate's fall. Lydia's eyes, shaped by her own daughter's estrangement, gleamed with vindication. "Nate's out," she said, her legal work sealing his fate. I felt liberated, my truth a rising tide. Back on the porch, the block party's music a distant hum, I faced Nate again. His sneer was gone, his shoulders slumped. "You're cutting me out?" he whispered, his voice hollow. I nodded, my journal heavy in my hands. "You called me outdated," I said, "but I'm eternal." Mrs. Delaney's whispers carried to the party, neighbors turning, Nate's shame now public. My heart lifted, not with vengeance, but with freedom. Can a son's lies survive a mother's truth? I didn't need his answer. Caleb tugged my sleeve, his voice soft. "Grandma, read this," he said, handing me his diary, its pages open. His handwriting scrawled notes of Nate's secret lawyer meetings, a quiet clue to his schemes. My pulse quickened, my fingers tracing the words. Caleb's loyalty, his pain over his father's fall, deepened our bond, but his truth strengthened my resolve. Rachel stood close, her arm around Caleb, her admiration a bridge rebuilt. Henry lingered by the door, his presence a redemption I hadn't expected. Lydia packed her papers, her grin fierce, her justice complete. I sat back in my rocker, the streetlight's hum steady, the burning leaves' scent fading. Nate shuffled away, his figure small against his dark house. I closed my journal, its pages full of his lies, forged letters, bank receipts, lawyer meetings. My liberation was here, on this porch, with my family reclaimed. Henry paused, his hand on the railing, his eyes scanning Nate's house. His lights flickered off early, he said, his voice low. My breath caught. Was Nate planning to flee? The block party's last notes drifted away, but my truth burned bright, ready for whatever came next. I spoke at the community center. Nate's shame was my spotlight. The Maplewood Community Center buzzed with life, folding chairs squeaking as folks settled in for the Elder Justice Seminar. The autumn chill seeped through the windows, but the room glowed with warmth, quilt raffle tickets rustling in eager hands. I stood at the podium, my hands steady, my heart full. I remembered the church potluck months ago, neighbors nodding with respect before Nate's betrayal. Now I'd claim that respect again. The forged letter, its lies exposed last night, was folded in my pocket, a symbol ready to burn. I cleared my throat, the microphone humming. They called me a burden, I said, my voice clear, but truth is power. The room stilled, eyes fixed on me. Rachel, my daughter, sat in the front row, her 35 years softened by pride. "I'm proud, Mom," she whispered, her hand squeezing Caleb's. My grandson, 14 and loyal, beamed, his eyes bright with admiration. Henry, his mechanic's hands clasped, nodded from beside her, his regret now a quiet strength. Lydia, my lawyer friend, clapped softly, her grin fierce, her own estrangement fueling her pride in my fight. Deacon Harris, gray hair gleaming, leaned forward, his nod a community's embrace. The quilt raffle's buzz faded, my words carrying weight. I was no burden. I was a voice. The center's warmth lingered as we stepped into my backyard, the air smoky from a small fire pit. The transition was sharp, the raffle's chatter giving way to crackling flames. I held the forged letter, its edges curling in my hand. Nate's house, dark across the fence, loomed silent, his absence a confirmation of defeat. I tossed the letter into the fire, the paper hissing, ash rising. I planted a white rose in the cooled embers, its petals soft against the dirt, visible to Nate's empty windows. Henry stepped close, his voice low. "I was blind to your strength, Ellie," he said, his shop-focused years now a regret he carried. Caleb hugged me, his voice fierce. "You're my hero, Grandma." Rachel handed me a note from an attendee, her fingers trembling. "Nate's packing boxes at night," it read. My heart skipped, a clue to his retreat. Can a son's shame ever dim a mother's light? We sat by the fire pit, the rose's scent mingling with smoke. Rachel spoke, her voice thick. "Nate told me you were a burden we had to shed," she said, her eyes wet. "He was wrong." Her words, Nate's final cruel dismissal, stung, but her pride fueled my triumph. I'd shared his lie at the seminar, not naming him, but the community knew. Their claps, their tears, had lifted me. Lydia leaned back, her briefcase at her feet, her justice complete. "You did it, Ellie," she said, her estrangement healed through my win. Henry gripped my hand, his presence a redemption. Caleb's admiration, his stability found in me, warmed my core. I stood, the fire's crackle fading, rose petals falling softly. I shed his burden. I whispered, my liberation complete. The community's love wrapped around me, Maplewood's heart beating with mine. Caleb pointed across the fence, his voice soft. Look, Grandma, he said. A for sale sign stood crooked on Nate's lawn, its white glow stark in the dusk. My pulse quickened. Was he gone for good? The night closed in, the seminar's echoes lingering, my triumph a light Nate couldn't dim. I painted my old house with fogged windows. My past was gone, but my future grew. The art room in my new Maplewood home smelled of turpentine, paint cans clinking as I dipped my brush. Late autumn light filtered through the window, frost glinting on the grass outside. The aroma of grilled chicken wafted from the kitchen, where Caleb hummed, helping prep dinner. I remembered painting with him as a toddler, his chubby hands smearing colors, giggling. That bond, now stronger, hinted at the legacy I was building. Nate's lies, his forged letter, his final cruelty, they were ashes now, like the letter I'd burned last night. I stood before my canvas, stroking fogged windows onto my old house, its outline blurred but free. Caleb, 14 and hopeful, peered over my shoulder. It's like it's disappearing, Grandma, he said, his voice warm. I smiled, my heart light. Rachel stepped in, her 35 years softened by reconciliation. She held a letter, her hands trembling. Mom, she said, her voice thick, I missed your graduation, but never again. Her apology, tied to that day I worked for Nate's loans, sealed our bond. The paintbrush's soft strokes echoed, the chicken sizzling nearby. I hugged her, my liberation solidifying. Is legacy built on love or the courage to let go? The paint can's clinks faded as we moved to the kitchen, the air warm with dinner's aroma. Lydia sat at the table, her briefcase open, papers crisp. The Thompson Legacy Grant is set, she said, her grin proud. $50,000 for women in crisis. Her eyes, shaped by her daughter's estrangement, shone with fulfillment. Henry, his mechanic's hands folded, shared a note left with a neighbor. Nate's last message, he said, his voice low. He said you were always a burden, even now. My chest tightened, Nate's parting cruelty stinging, though he was gone. Rachel's face hardened. We'll prove him wrong, she vowed, her love fierce. The audience would rage at Nate's words, but I felt only peace, the grant my triumph. We stepped outside, the frosty grass crunching underfoot. Caleb and I knelt by the garden, planting tomato seeds, their tiny husks rustling. I want to study botany, Grandma, he said, his dreams blooming. Jade and Marcus Hill, now settled in my old house, stopped by, their smiles grateful. Your home's perfect, Jade said, her hand on Marcus's. I nodded, my legacy set. I'm no burden, I whispered, patting the soil. I'm a seed. Rachel found a community center flyer in her mailbox, praising the grant, a quiet clue to its impact. My heart lifted, my family, Rachel, Caleb, Henry, redefined around me. Back inside, the chicken sizzle softened, the table set for us. Henry gripped my hand, his presence a redemption from his shop-focused years. I see you now, Ellie, he said, his voice soft. Lydia packed her papers, her legal work done, her own wounds healed through mine. Caleb's eyes sparkled, his stability found in our bond. I reflected, the canvas of my old house now a symbol of closure. My peace was complete, Nate's shadow gone. As we ate, Caleb grinned, his fork clinking. Can we plant more roses, Grandma? He asked. My pulse quickened, his question a spark. What would bloom next? The frost outside glinted, but my future was warm, rooted in love. My roses bloomed brighter than ever. My heart did too. The early spring air on my Maplewood porch was soft, carrying the sweet scent of white roses lining my fence. Birds chirped in the budding oaks, their song weaving with the lively hum of the farmer's market just down the street. Vendors' calls and children's laughter drifted over. a familiar pulse of our small Ohio town. I leaned back in my rocking chair, the wood creaking gently under me, my fingers tracing the edge of a jasmine tea mug. The roses, planted with Caleb last autumn, stood tall, their petals unfurling like quiet banners of victory. I remembered that day in the nursing home, my anger a seed sprouting defiance against Nate's betrayal. Now that seed had grown into peace, my liberation complete, my heart as open as the blooms before me. Caleb knelt in our garden, his 14-year-old hands deftly patting soil around tomato seedlings. Dirt smudged his cheeks, but his grin was bright, his eyes sparkling with dreams of college and botany. "These are going to be huge, Grandma," he said, his voice warm with pride. I smiled, my chest swelling. "You're my real home," he added, softer, his words a balm after months of Nate's cruel burden label. I nodded, sipping my tea, the steam curling in the morning light. The market's chatter grew louder, vendors hawking fresh strawberries, a banjo strumming somewhere, grounding us in Maplewood's heartbeat. I set my mug down, the porcelain clinking, and watched Caleb work, his hands steady like mine once were when I tended this land for my family. Nate's empty house across the fence, its windows dark, was a ghost now. His lies, forged letters, stolen savings, fading like last year's frost. I was content, my family redefined, my roots deep. I stood, my shoes soft on the porch boards, and walked to the garden, the grass dewy underfoot. Caleb looked up, wiping his brow. "Need help?" I asked, kneeling beside him. He shook his head but handed me a trowel, his grin infectious. "Just keep me company," he said. I dug into the soil, the earth cool and rich, a quiet act of creation. The roses, planted after I bought this house next to Nate's, were my defiance then, their white petals a daily reminder of my strength. Now, they were my peace, a symbol of the life I'd reclaimed. I thought of Nate, his final message calling me a burden, left with a neighbor like a coward's note. It stung once, but no longer. I was no burden. I was a seed, and this garden, this family, was my bloom. The porch creaked behind us, and Rachel stepped out, her 35 years softened by a gentle smile. She carried a tray of coffee mugs, the ceramic clinking, her apron dusted with flour from morning biscuits. "Thought you'd need fuel," she said, setting the tray down. Her eyes met mine, bright with a love rebuilt after years of distance, her guilt over my missed graduation healed by our shared fight against Nate. Henry followed, his mechanic's boots scuffing, his gray hair catching the sun. He gripped my shoulder, his hand warm. "Looks good out here, Ellie," he said, his voice gruff but tender. He'd been distant, lost in his shop for decades, but now he was here, his regret a quiet redemption for the art career I'd sacrificed for him. Lydia Chen, my lawyer friend, arrived next, her sundress swaying, her grin fierce as ever. "Coffee and victory," she said, lifting a mug, her laughter echoing her own triumph over estrangement from her daughter. The bird song swelled, a soft transition to our gathering, the market's hum a backdrop to our joy. We settled on the porch, mugs steaming, the clinking coffee cups a rhythm of togetherness. Deacon Harris, his silver hair gleaming, walked up the path, his cane tapping. "Ellie," he called, his voice warm, "your grant's the talk of Maplewood." He joined us, his chair squeaking, and shared the Thompson Legacy Grant's first success, a woman who'd escaped financial ruin, her story saved by my $55,000. "She's free because of you," he said, his words a community's pride. Rachel's eyes lit up, her hand on my arm. "I'm volunteering with the grant," she said, her voice fierce. "I want to give back." I nodded, her redemption complete, her love a mirror to mine. The audience would cheer her, knowing Nate's absence left room for this light. Caleb paused his gardening, listening, his dreams rooted in our family's strength. Lydia sipped her coffee, her legal work done, her fulfillment tied to my win. Henry smiled, his presence steady, cherishing me in ways he hadn't before. I felt complete, my heart full, the porch, our sanctuary. "Rachel," I said, my voice soft, "you're already giving back." She squeezed my hand, her eyes wet. I thought of her graduation, the day I worked double shifts, the ache of missing her milestone. We'd rebuilt that bridge, her volunteering now a testament to our bond. Caleb stood, brushing dirt from his jeans, and joined us, his lanky frame leaning against the railing. "I joined the gardening club," he said, his grin wide. "Gonna grow roses like yours, Grandma." I laughed, the sound bright, my legacy alive in his hands. Henry set his mug down, the clink sharp. "I'm cutting back at the shop," he said, his eyes on me. "Want to be here more." His words, a vow to stay close, warmed me. His regret for my lost art career, now a shared path forward. Lydia leaned back, her mug steaming. "Your win's changing us all," she said, her justice work continuing, her own wounds healed through mine. Deacon nodded, his cane tapping. "Maplewood's stronger for it," he said, his respect amplifying my impact. I stood, walking to the porch's edge, the rose scent wrapping around me. The market's chatter softened, vendors packing up, the banjo now a distant twang. I sipped my jasmine tea, the teacup warm, and gazed at my garden, tomatoes sprouting, roses thriving. Nate's burden label, his forged letter, his theft, they were gone. His house across the fence, a hollow shell. I reflected, my journal closed now, its pages full of battles won. I was no burden, I whispered, my voice steady. I was a seed. My family, Rachel, Caleb, Henry, Lydia, was my bloom, Maplewood's love, my soil. Does peace come from love or choosing who stays in your heart? My smile answered, my eyes on the roses, their petals velvet in the light. Rachel stepped beside me, her apron still flower-dusted. "The grant's helping more women," she said, her voice bright. "I found a flyer in my mailbox, praising it." I nodded. The flyer a quiet nod to my impact. No twist needed in this moment of peace. Caleb joined us, his hands still earthy, his dreams of college clear in his eyes. "I want to honor you, Grandma," he said, his voice soft but strong. I hugged him, his warmth a promise of growth. Henry stood close, his hand on my back, his presence a gift. Lydia and Deacon chatted softly, their laughter a melody, the market's hum fading into dusk. I sat back in my rocker, the wood creaking, tea steaming in my hands. The birds sang on, their notes high and clear, the roses' scent lingering. My life with Caleb, Rachel, and Henry, the Grant's quiet victories, they were my triumph, a legacy enduring beyond Nate's shadow. I thought of my old house, now Jade and Marcus's, its windows clear where I'd painted them fogged. I'd let go, this porch, my freedom, my family, my home. As the sun dipped low, Caleb looked up, his dirt-smudged face bright. "More roses next year, Grandma?" he asked, his voice hopeful. I nodded, my heart full, the question a spark. I gazed at my garden, its blooms a canvas of peace, but a new thought stirred, a seed yet to sprout. What else could grow in this soil I'd reclaimed? The roses glowed under the Maplewood dusk, their scent weaving through the porch's calm. I sipped my jasmine tea, the teacup warm. Caleb's question. More roses next year? Still sparking in my mind. My heart, full from the family I'd redefined, stirred with a new possibility. The Thompson Legacy Grant was growing, but something else tugged at me, a seed of purpose waiting to bloom. I stood, the rocker creaking, and walked to the garden's edge. The farmer's market had quieted, only a banjo's faint twang lingering. Rachel joined me, her apron gone, her eyes curious. "You're thinking something big, Mom," she said, her voice soft. I smiled, nodding. "The grant's helping women," I said. "But what about our kids? Caleb's generation?" My gaze fell on him, tending tomatoes, his dreams of botany bright. Maplewood's youth needed roots, not just rescue. Henry stepped close, his boots soft on the grass. "You mean a program?" he asked, his mechanic's mind turning. I nodded, the idea sharpening. "A gardening mentorship," I said, "teaching kids like Caleb to grow food, build futures." Lydia, overhearing, grinned from the porch. "That's you, Ellie," she said, her lawyer's wit sharp. "Planting hope." Deacon Harris, his cane tapping, added, "The church could host it." Their support lit a fire, my liberation now a call to create. Caleb looked up, dirt smudging his cheeks. "I'd join, Grandma," he said, his voice eager. I knelt beside him, the soil cool. "You'd lead it," I whispered, his eyes widening. Rachel squeezed my shoulder, her volunteering spirit ready. "Let's do it," she said, her love a bridge to this new dream. Henry's hand found mine, his presence steady. "I'll build the raised beds," he offered, his shop skills now ours. I stood, the rose scent strong, the market's last notes fading. My journal, closed for months, called to me. I'd write this plan. Mentors, plots, kids learning to sew. Nate's burden label, his forged letter, his empty house. They were dust now. My legacy wasn't just the grant. It was Caleb's future, Maplewood's youth, a community growing together. I wasn't done planting. The stars blinked above, the porch light soft. I turned to my family, their faces glowing. "We start tomorrow," I said, my voice firm. Caleb grinned. Rachel nodded. Henry squeezed my hand. Lydia raised her mug. Deacon smiled. The garden stretched before us, its soil rich with promise. What else could bloom? I felt a new seed stir, ready to break ground, my heart open to whatever grew next. As I stood in my new Maplewood garden, the scent of roses planted with Caleb filled the air, a quiet triumph after selling my house out from under Nate's grasp. My heart, once heavy with his betrayal, now bloomed with resolve, rooted in the love of Rachel and Caleb, who stood by me through his lies. In life, family bonds can fray under greed or misunderstanding, but love, when nurtured, grows stronger than any hurt. Forgiving Rachel's silence and embracing Caleb's loyalty taught me that compassion mends what selfishness breaks. Like tending a garden, we must choose who to nurture and when to let go, trusting that truth will take root. If this story touched you, please share your own family moments in the comments below. Your voice matters, and I'd love to hear how love has shaped your life.